The afternoon sun bathed Washington, D.C. in a soft, golden light, casting long shadows over its grand architecture. Karoline Leavitt, just 27 years old, the youngest White House press secretary in history, relaxed in her upscale apartment, just a stone's throw from the White House. The small silver cross resting on the collar of her crisp navy blue blazer shimmered under the dimming light, a constant symbol of her faith, a quiet reminder of her roots in New Hampshire. Just as she let herself unwind, her phone buzzed sharply, breaking the tranquility. She glanced at the screen. President Trump. Without hesitation, she answered. Karoline, there's a case at the D.C. local court. A group of Christians is suing because they were banned from praying in public. I need you there. Observe everything, report back to me. His voice was urgent, firm, leaving no room for hesitation. Karoline straightened instinctively, a deep breath steadying her thoughts. Crisis management was second nature to her. But this struck something deeper. It wasn't just political. It was personal. Her apartment reflected her disciplined nature, stacks of neatly arranged documents, business attire pressed and ready. Today, she chose simplicity, a tailored blazer, a crisp white shirt, sleek black pants. The cross, however, was non-negotiable. It wasn't just jewelry. It was part of her. Wasting no time, she grabbed her essentials and stepped into her black SUV. The city was alive with the evening rush, headlights flashing, horns blaring, news pouring through the car speakers. In breaking news, a controversial religious case is set to be heard today at the D.C. court. She switched the radio off. Focus. She needed focus. Police Garlight, before we dive into this gripping story, let me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a breaking update. Police Car Light. The courthouse loomed ahead, its glass doors gleaming under the city lights. As Karoline stepped inside, a thick wave of noise hit her, a chaotic blend of voices, ringing phones, and hurried footsteps. The air was dense, a mix of tension and impatience. Murmurs buzzed through the space, an offbeat symphony of disgruntled citizens waiting their turn, petty disputes, parking fines, overdue rent cases. A clerk's keyboard clattered relentlessly in one corner. She checked her watch. 2:53 p.m. Just minutes before the case that had caught Trump's attention was set to begin. Karoline chose a stiff wooden seat in the middle row, setting her bag down beside her. She unlocked her phone, fingers poised to take notes. Under the sterile courtroom lights, the silver cross on her neck glowed faintly, yet she hardly noticed the curious glances thrown her way. The room was compact yet cluttered, making it feel smaller than it was. Across the aisle, a middle-aged man wearing a bold t-shirt emblazoned with "I am King" fidgeted with his phone. To her right, a young woman's oversized necklace gleamed so brightly it could outshine a chandelier. Karoline's brows knit together slightly. Clearly, dress codes weren't a concern here. She refocused on her purpose, documenting the lawsuit. A group of Christians was challenging a government-imposed restriction on public prayer in a local park. It was more than just a case. It was a statement. And Trump wanted her to be the eyes and ears on the ground. A sudden shift in the atmosphere caught her attention. The wooden door at the back of the courtroom creaked open, and Judge Charles Hargrove emerged. At 62, his presence was commanding. His salt and pepper hair was slicked back with precision, his wire-rimmed glasses perched precariously on his nose, and his black robe so flawlessly pressed it might have just come off the ironing board. The room hushed. "All rise," bellowed James Wilson, the towering bailiff with a stern, no-nonsense expression. Karoline rose along with the others, her phone still in hand, her sharp gaze locked on Hargrove. With a swift bang of his gavel, the session began. His voice, deep and razor-sharp, sliced through the silence. "This is a court of law, not a place for theatrics." Case after case flew by like clockwork. A man fined $50 for parking in the wrong zone. Case closed. A woman struggling with overdue rent. Given a warning. Karoline noted it all. Hargrove ran his courtroom like a well-oiled machine, efficient, mechanical, cold. Then something made her pause. The man in the I Am King t-shirt stepped up for his case, a neighborhood dispute. Hargrove barely glanced at him, let alone his flashy attire. The woman with the dazzling necklace followed. Again, no comment. Karoline's brows furrowed. Something wasn't adding up. Then the shift came. Hargrove's sharp eyes landed on her. He froze mid-sentence, papers in hand, fingers tapping against them absent-mindedly. His gaze narrowed behind the thin wire of his glasses, his mind clearly turning over a realization. "Miss Leavitt," he spoke at last, his voice controlled, yet tinged with something else. Recognition. Caution. Heads turned. A ripple of whispers spread as more people recognized her from the White House press briefings. Then his eyes flicked downward, at the cross. "That," he said, pointing a rigid finger, his tone like ice, "does not belong here. This courtroom is neutral. We do not display faith here." Karoline's pulse remained steady, but her mind raced. Her eyes flicked around the room. No signs forbidding religious symbols, no written rules against personal items. Her voice, unwavering, carried across the hushed space. "I'm Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary, here on official work. This is a personal item, protected by the First Amendment. It violates no rules." A flicker of irritation crossed Hargrove's face. His lips pressed thin. "Work," he repeated, his tone razor-sharp. "This is not a place to wear that and cause unnecessary disruptions. The courtroom is neutral, not a church." Another sharp bang of the gavel. Authority emphasized. Wilson, the bailiff, shifted slightly, watching. Mrs. Thompson, the court clerk with her tightly wound bun, hesitated in her typing, casting a sideways glance at Karoline. The man in the I Am King t-shirt and the woman with the extravagant necklace whispered among themselves, surprised. Surprised that they had drawn no attention, while Karoline had. Her grip tightened on her phone. The realization struck swiftly and clearly. This wasn't about courtroom rules. This was about the cross. Judge Hargrove's stare bore into her, his jaw clenched. "Sir," she said evenly, her voice calm but firm, "I have the right to wear this under the First Amendment." Hargrove's patience snapped. "Do not lecture me on the law," he bit out, his tone slicing through the air. "Step up to the bench. Now." The room stilled. Breaths held. Karoline inhaled deeply, her polished heels clicking against the worn wooden floor as she stepped forward. This wasn't just about a court hearing anymore. This was about something bigger. The moment Karoline's heels clicked against the wooden floor of the D.C. local courtroom, the air thickened. Every eye in the room fixed on her. The silver cross on her navy blue blazer's collar shimmered under the harsh fluorescent lights, a lone spark against an approaching storm. At the front, elevated above the rest, Judge Charles Hargrove sat with an air of dominance. His thin wire-rimmed glasses perched low on his nose, his eyes narrowing further, his jaw tightening. His face, already stiff with authority, turned a shade darker, flushed with rising anger. His voice came, low but sharp as a blade. "Miss Leavitt, what exactly do you think you're doing here, wearing that?" Karoline didn't flinch. "Sir, I'm here on duty," she answered steadily, her fingers tightening around her phone, thumbs subtly tapping the screen, recording. A sharp bang echoed through the courtroom as Hargrove slammed his gavel. "I've seen people like you before," he sneered, voice dripping with contempt. "Thinking faith gives them the right to do whatever they please, wherever they please. Not in my courtroom. It's not allowed." His hand gripped the gavel tighter, his knuckles whitening. "Do you realize this is contempt of court?" Karoline's brow furrowed slightly, her gaze sweeping the room. The man in the I Am King t-shirt? Still seated. The woman with the oversized necklace? Whispering with her lawyer, completely ignored. Yet, her tiny silver cross was the issue? She exhaled slowly. "Sir, I am not disrupting anything," she said, keeping her voice even. "I'm here for work. My attire does not interfere with court proceedings. If there's a specific rule banning this, I'd like to see it officially." A cold smirk stretched across Hargrove's face. A humorless, condescending grin. "A rule? Let me make this clear." He leaned forward, his tone dropping. "I am the rule here. You walked into my courtroom wearing that, disrespecting the neutrality of the law. And now, demanding documentation? Another slam of the gavel, louder. The force of it made Mrs. Thompson, the court clerk, pause mid-typing, her expression uneasy. A murmur rippled through the crowd. In the back row, an older man shook his head, whispering to the person beside him. That woman's necklace is bigger. Why is no one saying anything? Near the judge's bench, James Wilson, the bailiff, stood watching. 15 years in this courtroom. He had seen this bias before. Karoline inhaled deeply, keeping her composure. A direct argument wouldn't win this battle. She needed a different strategy. Sir, if I've violated a courtroom rule, I have the right to a clear, written explanation, she stated, adjusting her phone slightly to ensure the recording continued. Hargrove's sneer deepened. Her calmness infuriated him. Explanation? Here's your explanation, his voice cut through the room. You're fined $500 for contempt of court. The gavel struck a third time. Hard. Gasps rippled across the room. Miss Thompson's fingers hovered over her keyboard, hesitant. $500? A young woman whispered. Just for a cross? The man in the I Am King t-shirt let out a low chuckle, but quickly stopped as Hargrove's glare snapped toward him. The judge's voice was final, like a lecture. You'll pay today before you leave. His tone turned smug. Maybe this fine will teach you something about respecting order. This isn't a church, Miss Leavitt. And it's certainly not a stage for theatrics. He leaned back, confident, as if he had just won. But Karoline didn't move. She stood firm, eyes locked onto his, unshaken. Her voice remained even but held an edge, a quiet defiance. Sir, I understand your ruling, she said slowly. But I have one question. Why am I the only one being fined? The words hung in the air. Hargrove stiffened. What do you mean? He snapped. Karoline tilted her head slightly, gaze unwavering. Others in this courtroom are wearing printed t-shirts, oversized jewelry. Yet, I'm the only one being fined. The room fell deathly silent. A tense moment stretched between them. Hargrove's face reddened further. His grip on the gavel tightened. Don't change the subject, he barked. You're the only one bold enough to walk into my courtroom displaying religious symbolism. That's the difference. Karoline gave a small nod. A confirmation. Now, she knew for certain, this wasn't just bias. This was targeted. Deliberate. Mrs. Thompson resumed typing, but her fingers trembled slightly. 15 years working with Hargrove, and she had never seen such a harsh fine for something so small. James Wilson's arms remained crossed. His head tilted slightly, his expression unreadable, but his eyes held something close to sympathy. Across the courtroom, murmurs intensified. Some in the audience began sneaking out their phones, despite the no-filming rule. Still, Karoline did not move. She knew this wasn't just about a fine anymore. It was bigger. She squared her shoulders. Are you done, sir? Her voice was soft but piercing. Hargrove faltered, just slightly. Not yet, he growled. You'll pay and I'll move on. Now, sit down. Another bang of the gavel. But Karoline still did not sit. Instead, she stepped forward. Her hand rested on the edge of the judge's bench. Her eyes never wavered. I'll pay, she said, her voice low, steady. But we are not done here. The smirk that had been plastered across Hargrove's face flickered. Just for a moment. The battle was only beginning.